feel love, and I ain't got no
I got the fire flow. Shorty getting down, going up the fire pole. Radical in the mitten where we mad cold. I got the bullfrog flow. You a tadpole.
Welcome to someone's favorite movie. I'm coming to you from the pod shack outside beautiful Flint, Michigan, USA. My name is Randy, and with me is the man they call Tom Coe. What's up, sir?
Oh, not much. Coming to you just outside of beautiful Flint, Michigan.
It's amazing how time and distance works, huh?
It is.
Yes.
It absolutely is.
I hail from the Big Dumb Comedy Show known as Miserable Retail Slave. He hails from the Big Dumb Geek Show known as Jake and Tom Conquer the World. And when we get together, we form a Big Dumb Movie Show, which is what you're listening to right this second, you lucky dogs.
Movie geek powers activate is what you're saying.
Yeah, form of a lens flare.
Form of a shitty horror movie.
Yes. That's our bread and butter around these parts.
It is.
Yeah. It's what pays the bills. Today, we're not...
You get paid for this shit?
Oops. God damn it.
Are we going to have a conversation after the show?
Well, I am going to have to hypnotize you into forgetting I said anything.
Don't worry. In an hour, I'll never remember it.
I know it. You're quite up there in age, so...
Yeah.
It happens. Today we're going to talk about a very, very, very special movie. It's called 12:01 p.m., and we're going to get to the bottom of a scandal. You ever hear of a scandal?
I may have heard of a couple of them, yes.
Oh,
yes.
my God. We're going to blow this case wide open. We're going to see whether or not we're going to be judge, jury, and executioners, even though the case already passed. We're going to weigh in on whether we think this movie, 12:01 p.m., was ripped off by a Hollywood cinema classic, the one known as Groundhog Day.
Yeah, that was the very first thing that popped in my mind when I was watching this. The striking similarity to the concept.
Very striking. That is why we are releasing this episode on Groundhog Day, because boy, oh boy, we're a whores for synergy. Anytime.
Oh, yes.
Yes, anytime we can get a little bump in those DL numbers. Hell yeah. Take it every time.
Yes. Anything for a cheap plug. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. That's what podcasters do. They just sweat and cry and do anything to get those.
We live for the dopamine release that we get from numbers, don't we?
Yep. I mean, it's no different than you people in your social medias and your likes and your Instagram followers and your Twitter retweets. We're all just suckers for numbers these days.
Yeah, at least we don't deal with Farmville?
Oh, that's true. I'm glad that's pretty much extinct.
Yeah, my wife was driving me up the wall with that shit.
Oh, Mrs. Tomko, come on. Nobody cares if you get enough grain for your cattle.
Hey, that was a big part of her enjoyment. You know, was her free time was just unwinding and doing chores on her iPad for a long time. I can't fault her.
Doing chores without doing chores. I like it.
Yeah, she felt accomplished.
Uh-huh. Sure. Before we get started, Tomko, you ever had a movie that you've been looking for and you can never track it down no matter how hard you find, and it haunts you for all your days? And it's like searching for buried treasure. You're like Blackbeard scouring the seas looking for this stupid movie, which you know will never, ever possibly live up to any sort of expectations. Have you ever had that?
Yes, I'm actually currently looking for an old Beatle documentary that I haven't seen since the early 90s, and I can't find it anywhere on the interwebs.
Do you remember the name of it?
The Complete Beatles.
The Complete Beatles. So you're head and shoulders above my predicament, because one day I was surfing the World Wide Web and I saw, because cool people still call it the World Wide Web, you see, and I saw this movie that came out in the mid 90s, indie movie, a talkie movie, dialogue driven, which I love. I love all those 90s indie movies that are just dialogue and whatever. And from what I gather, the movie takes place between three characters, and it only takes place like over the phone and via fax machines and stuff like that. That's how they communicate, and it's like split screen and whatever. I'm like, well, this seems interesting, and I've never heard of it before. So that night I started searching for it, and then I got busy, and the next week I went to search for it again, and I could not for the life of me remember the name of the fucking movie. Not at all. So this has haunted me for a goddamn year and a half.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, okay, phone was in the title, phone call maybe was in the title. I could not remember, and I'm searching and I'm searching. I'm finding nothing, and finally, 2 weeks ago, I don't even know how I found it. I don't even know how I stumbled upon it. I finally found the fucking movie, and I shit you not, phone wasn't even in the title, so I don't know where I got that. Like, that was what I was focused on. I'm like, phone, cool phone, pay phone, call phone, something phone. No, it's a movie called Denise Calls Up, and I finally found it. And I haven't watched it yet. I'm scared to, because I know it's not going to be...
It's not going to be worth all the effort you put into it.
No, not at all, but I couldn't stop until I found my white whale, and that's Denise Calls Up. So... now I have it. I have to watch it eventually just to see, but I'm scared.
You know, another movie I've been looking for, and I can't find it anywhere. I can't find it through both legal or gray means, is a very little known movie starring Chasing Amy's Joey Lauren Adams. It's called L.A. Rules, The Pros and Cons of Breathing.
Oh, wow. I've never even heard of this.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who's ever heard of it. I just remember renting it back in like 1998 because I was a huge Kevin Smith fan back in those days. And I think he may have been like an executive producer on it. And it's a perfectly mediocre movie that has deserved to be forgotten.
Sure.
But it's just the fact that I can't find it that's pissing me off.
Oh, yeah. It'll drive you nuts. Especially as a movie guy, you know, you love movies. It drives you nuts that you can't at least like have a copy of it somewhere just in case on a rainy day you're like, hey, I remember that movie.
Yeah, I mean, you'd figure that, you know, there'd be like some old Blockbuster stock that's still floating around on eBay, but nothing.
That's no good.
No.
We're going to find you that movie, Tomko. We're going to find it.
Well, I mean, it's going to be one of those situations where the hunt is fruitless because the best thing in that movie is the title.
Yeah, that's a pretty sweet title.
It is an awesome title.
I'll give it that for sure. Speaking of scavenger hunts, I'm going to throw down the gauntlet, Tomko, for a future episode.
Uh-oh.
This is my idea, Tomko. This is going to happen in, I want to say March. We'll give it to end of March.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
The anticipation is killing me.
Okay, good. And I want listeners to participate as well. So the goal is the theme of the episode will be possessed hands. Movies featuring hands, or we'll say other body parts as well, that are possessed. And your goal...
there's a shocking number of them, too.
Your goal is to find as many weird ones as you can, watch them, and review them for the show by the end of March.
If I can find it, I think I got the perfect one. I think it's called The Hand, written by Oliver Stone, starring Michael Caine.
See, I thought of the hand as well. But I want to see how many we can come up with. How many are out there? I want listeners to chime in too with their own couple sentence reviews of the hand movies they found too. Or foot movies. If you find a movie about a possessed foot, I'm not going to turn it away. Let me know, folks.
No. Now, would Evil Dead 2 count in this genre?
I would say would kind of have to, right?
Yeah, because that's kind of the ultimate possessed hand movie.
Yeah. I'm thinking more of where the possessed hand is like the main plot point, though.
Oh.
So, I mean, my simple definition, yeah, it would absolutely. That's probably the most famous.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the Addams Family, I think Thing is definitely a possessed hand of some sort. What a creep.
Yeah, I think that would have to count as well.
You can't tell me that thing didn't belong to a serial killer.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering where the rest of Hand's body is now.
Yeah, what does that dude look like?
Huh. Damn it, you just ruined the Addams Family for me.
Well, you're welcome. So, but at the end of March, we're going to do that episode. So it's up to you, Tomko. Find as many movies as you can. Listeners, find as many movies as you can. We're going to run them down. A big old list. It's going to be great. Glorious.
I am going to, if I have some spare time at work, I think I'm going to have to do a little bit of digging. This is interesting.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah.
Also fun, it appears that your esteemed co-host, the Honorable Jacob, has caved in to our demands, despite the fact that last week's episode was just released today. He's already caved in, such as the power of someone's favorite movie.
Yes. Yeah, well, after him begging and needling me, airing his grievances and jealousy, he finally agreed that, yes, he will sit down and watch a bad movie with us.
Perfect. I love it. So
yes.
Are we in agreement that we're going to cover both the Ewoks movies?
Yes. I did talk to him about that when last we recorded, and he and I have the exact same experience and memories of that movie, or I should say that series of movies, in that we remember watching them when we were little kids. We remember even as little kids thinking that they were pieces of shit, and that's all we remember about them.
That's great. You know what's hilarious? Now that I think about it, the one thing I remember about both those movies, and I know I've seen them, but I don't remember anything about them, including whether or not I liked them. The thing I remember about those movies were those were my dad's great white whales. He searched.
Really?
Oh yeah, he searched forever for copies of those on VHS, like because Star Wars was his jam. He anytime we were in any sort of store that sold movies, he would look high and low for those Ewok movies.
Oh God, he would have had a blast at a comic book convention back in the day. Then
I'm sure. Yeah, he wasn't that nerdy, but he any like storefront that might have VHS tapes, he'd go in there and look high and low to search for them. And he finally found them. I don't remember where, but he did find them.
What was his opinion when he rewatched them?
I don't remember.
I was hoping that he was going to fly into a rage at all that wasted energy over the Ewok movies.
Yeah, I think he likes them just because it's Star Wars, but I don't know. I'll have to ask him. Maybe I'll ask him before we do that episode.
I am very, very curious to hear his opinions on those movies. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll ask him for sure. Like, Dad, remember those Ewok movies? What'd you think?
I want to feel the rage.
Yeah, I'm sure there's got to be some rage, huh?
Kind of puts the whole backlash against the sequel trilogy into perspective.
Oh, certainly.
If you want to see a really bad Star Wars movie, look no further.
Yeah, honestly, Star Wars has been shitty for a long time, so...
Yeah, this is nothing new, folks.
Yeah, the Ewok movies, Star Wars Holiday Special, available now in the Someone's Favorite Movie Archives. Perfect examples.
I look forward to this, sir.
Cool. It'll be fun.
Yes.
Let's move on. What are you watching these days, Tomko? Anything new since last time?
Well, nothing new, but I just rewatched Avengers Endgame for the first time since I saw it in the theater. And I don't want to say that the shine kind of came off of it a bit.
Yeah, I could see
But
that, though.
It didn't feel like an epic movie so much as it felt like an amazingly satisfying conclusion to a TV show.
Yeah. Yeah, I can
And
see that.
I don't know if that's a compliment or if it's an insult, but it just those movies are starting to really not feel like movies at all.
Yeah, it just feels like a bingeable series, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
especially since the lines are going to be blurred with Disney Plus now, where important characters are having TV shows on there like Loki and Winter Soldier and Falcon and Scarlet Witch and Vision, and all those stories are going to loop back into the movies and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not saying again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I just it's kind of interesting how movies and television have kind of switched roles these past couple, I'd say 15 years or so, where television was disposable entertainment that you just watched passively and never really thought much about it. And movies where really interesting stories, great camera work was done, and amazing acting took place. That's kind of flip-flopped this past decade and a half.
Yeah, it has. And you know what's hilarious to me? The fucking channel that was famous for showing shitty Chuck Norris movies, AMC, turns around and starts dramas like Mad Men and Breaking Bad. And that's really what started this shift into like really good, high quality TV programming.
I'd say it started earlier than that with The Sopranos, The Wire, things like that.
It did, but it didn't quite catch on to regular basic cable.
No. But, I mean, if it makes you feel any better, AMC quickly shit the bed, especially with, Walking Dead and, what was it, Into the Badlands. Did you ever try watching that?
No, and I stopped watching The Walking Dead like years ago.
Yeah, same here. So, I mean, they're still trashy at their roots.
Yeah. Speaking of trashy at their roots, you know what I've been watching, Tomko?
The reality show about trash men.
Close. But another episode of the Red Shoe Diaries. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes.
Season 1, Episode 2 of the Red Shoe Diaries. Double Dare. And I don't want to spoil it too much, Tomko, but it does not involve Mark Summers or any sort of scenario involving lumpy green slime. Sorry. I'm sorry.
Mark Summers is born for erotic 1990s fiction.
When I think of eroticism, Mark Summers is the first thing that springs to mind.
Naturally.
So, yeah. So this one features a hardworking, driven woman. Surprising, shocking, because also the first episode did. So, and she's in the ad industry, and one day she's gazing out the window at the building across from her, and she spies a striking, mysterious-looking man. And she's like, oh, God, look at this guy. And he catches her spying at him, and he smiles back. And this is an actual quote. I took care to write this down. If there was an Olympic event for smiling, this guy would get the gold.
That is some top-notch dialogue.
Fucking perfect, right? So this woman fantasizes about this mystery building player guy. Like, it's all she can think about. Then one day she gets a fax, and it's from this guy who found out where she worked and her fax number, stalker. And the fax says, tell me your name, I dare you. And she's like, everything about him exuded success. So obviously, she responded back because this dare woke up something inside of her. Her dormant sexuality was awakened by this guy. Despite the fact that she's married, this man intrigues her so. So she faxes him back and gets a thrill. And the whole time she's narrating the story, she's like practically purring, you know. She sends the fax back, and he takes his shirt off, and she's peeping through the window like, oh, damn, boy. And then he sends a fax that says, of course, take off your blouse. So, obviously, you know.
Is this like the 1990s version of the unsolicited dick pic?
It might be. It's like, yeah, it's got to be the closest thing, right?
Yeah.
Fax dick. That's what we'll call it.
There you go.
Fax dick. Write it down, folks.
Make it a thing, internet.
Yep. So this carries on for a few days, and they do these strip teases or whatever. And then one day he faxes her to turn on the radio, and she turns it on, and it's the worst fucking song I've ever heard. So I don't know how this is supposed to turn her on. But whatever, it's supposed to be erotic. And it must have been because she started rubbing her nipples, and I couldn't believe it. But in the meantime, all this reignited her sex life with her husband. So she keeps doing it because sex at home is great. She gets a thrill at work as well. You know, getting naked in the office. What could be better?
I'm just picturing her husband as like some bald, frumpy, middle-aged guy with a beer gut.
No, he was a bearded man with a mullet. So, you know,
that's close enough.
Yeah, close enough. She starts to feel guilty about it, so she keeps the curtains closed for a bit. She gets bombarded by fax messages. Double dog dare you to fuck me is what it says, something to that effect. Because we've really stepped up our game now.
At least he's not beating around the bush.
No pun intended.
Aha.
She basically ignores this guy for a few days until one night when she's going to get into her car, he's standing there. And he meets her and dares her to make love to him in the back of his car. Because he's classy like that, you know? He says it'd be the perfect end to their perfect game. And she's thinking to herself that this dude affects her just like a drug. But she doesn't want to cheat on her husband. So she never did anything. She went home to her husband, and that was that. But she wonders to herself, did I cheat on my husband? By showing another man my lady bits from across the way? And finally, David Duchovny with the ending line, because he narrates every episode of the Red Shoe Diaries. Where do you draw the line?
Does he just say, yeah, totally?
Totally. Well, he always has a soliloquy at the end with his dog sitting there looking at him like he's the weirdest man. Just like last episode where the moral of the story is played, he states it flat out. This moral was, where do you draw the line between window shopping and throwing down your credit card? And
that's clever, Dave.
Good stuff, this Red Shoes. However, if I was 13-year-old Randy watching the scrambled porn version of this to see some good stuff, I would be
It would be your entire world.
Well, it would have all my attention, but I would have been sorely disappointed because there wasn't a lot of nudity or sexy stuff. So,
what the fuck, Showtime?
I know. So, for now, the first episode is highly better than the second. 0 stars. Sorry, Red Shoes.
No.
I know. Might as well get to our main event, our feature
Yes.
presentation. 12:01 p.m.
Never heard of this movie prior to you talking about it last week.
Yes. So the reason this movie initially interested me is, as I stated before, the producers of this movie sued the producers of Groundhog Day because of striking similarities. And I'm like, well, could this be? Groundhog Day is rightfully a classic movie. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's great storytelling. It's good acting. Could it have been lifted from somewhere else? Could it have been? So it really piqued my interest, and I had to get to the bottom of it. I had to see for my own self. What do you think, Tomko?
Are you asking my final verdict?
Well, I don't know. We don't have to jump the gun that far ahead, I guess.
I would say that the writer and producers of 12:01 p.m. had a very compelling argument. I just don't think they had the money to spend on lawyers like Columbia Pictures did.
So 12:01 p.m. is based on a short story by an author named Richard Lupoff, who wrote it in 1973. He was quoted in an interview as saying, "A brilliant young filmmaker named Jonathan Heap made a superb 30-minute version of my short story, 12:01 p.m. It was an Oscar nominee in 1990. Yes, it was.
Mm-hmm.
I had never heard of it, but it was. And was later adapted very loosely into a 2-hour Fox movie called 12:01. If you happen to see the two films, you might want to try and spot the only actor who appears in both, me as an extra. Possibly the most obscure piece of Hollywood trivia of all time." There you go, folks. You're going to win some pub trivia now. The story was also adapted, actually plagiarized, into a major theatrical film in 1993. Jonathan Heap and I were outraged and tried very hard to go after the rascals who had robbed us, but alas, the Hollywood establishment closed ranks. After half a year of lawyers' conferences and emotional stress, we agreed to put the matter behind us and get on with our lives.
And, it kind of sucks because, like I said, I think there is a very compelling argument that Mr. Lupus had.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, it's all about money. Who has the most to spend on getting their own way?
Yeah. I like how you called him Mr. Lupus. It's Mr. Lupoff. He does not have a disease where his organs... Same thing.
Same thing.
Same
I
thing.
literally read the guy's name for the first time like 10 minutes ago.
Okay, well, geez, don't get mad at me. Oh, God. You're witnessing a podcast breaking up, folks. Damn. Enjoy the memories.
Oh, is this where we have the montage where we look wistfully off camera?
Yes, at all the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies we were forced to watch. Available now in the archives. God help us. So this movie features Kurtwood Smith, who is the bad guy in RoboCop, and
he will always be Clarence Boddicker in my heart. Also
the dad in That 70s Show. That's how most people will remember him, probably.
Probably.
And it begins with him waking up in the middle of the traffic. Cars zipping around him, and he's breathing a huge sigh, like he's done this already. And he wanders into the park and spies this beautiful woman sitting alone on a park bench. But instead of sitting next to her, he sits next to this large man who promptly gets shat on by a bird. And that prompts Kurtwood Smith, whose name is Myron Castleman in the movie, to sit next to the beautiful woman, and they chat and stuff, and he fails miserably at small talk, like he's never done this before, and she's a quirky, fun girl, and he seems to be a boring, by-the-book kind of guy who organizes his lunch perfectly and seems perpetually pissy. He also keeps looking at the clock the whole time as they introduce each other. He's Myron, that's Dolores, and he says, "I never knew how short an hour could be." And like, what's up with this guy? And he says in his entire life, this is the very first time he's ever talked to a stranger. And then he ruins it immediately by turning into a crazy person, saying the world is stuck like a needle on a scratch record, and it's going nowhere. He's repeating the same hour of his life every day. At 1 p.m., his life reverts back to 12:01 noon. And he says he's been through it at this point 30 or 40 times.
Now, I have to admit, up until he, lost his shit, I thought that it was just going to be one of those stories where a guy is trapped in a mundane, go-nowhere job. He is on his lunch break, and he, for whatever reason, just strikes up a conversation, and he has to cut it short because he has to get back to work. And as soon as he started basically going on and on, it's all the pieces kind of fell together as far as exactly where this story was going to go.
Yeah, well, and I think the mundane aspect of it is the whole reason why Groundhog Day, this movie, how it all works. Like, that's why Groundhog Day is a popular term now. Like, every day is Groundhog Day.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a very subtle or hidden message as far as what the movies are really about.
No, not at all. You think about that now. However, in 1973, when it was originally written, in 1990, back before Groundhog Day was a term people used all the time, different story. I think it's really powerful, and that's why it's kind of permeated the culture, and people use it. Even people who've never seen Groundhog Day knows what the term means.
Yep.
And I think it's kind of sad and pathetic that, that's the first time this Myron has ever talked to a stranger in the history of his life.
Well, I can understand that as somebody who's more than a little bit of an introvert. It's not the easiest thing to do in those circumstances.
Well, learn something from this movie, Tomko. Get out of your bubble. Get out there and live.
I think I'll go out and start a podcast and talk to the whole goddamn world.
There you go. You've done it. It can't be this podcast because we only talk to a few people still. So
it's a start.
It is a start. I mean, Rome wasn't built in, 12 episodes apparently. Who knew the Silent Night, Deadly Night franchise wouldn't be a huge draw? I thought we'd be rich by now.
So go on, sir. 12:01 p.m.
Well, he says the whole universe is going crazy, and he's just sitting there eating carrot sticks, which is that line really stuck out to me because it feels like the whole world is going crazy, and I just sit there sipping Mountain Dew like, okay. So I sympathize with that line.
Yeah, I mean, there are times where you just kind of sit back, you watch the news, you watch the things that are going on around you, and you realize that you have no option other than to just be a passive observer most of the time.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
So, he starts proving things that he's seen before and telling her what's going to happen before it does. And he says it's taken him 40 times to work up the courage to talk to her, which, quite honestly, I probably would never. I would do it now, but I was right in your shoes. I used to be a huge introvert. Like, I would never walk up to a lady, a girl, or even some random dude and start talking to him either. I would now, but I wouldn't 10 years ago. It says it's taken him 40 times to work up the courage to talk to her. He hugs her, and the clock strikes 1. He snaps back to 12:01. At this point, I'm thinking the whole story is him trying to win her love or a date or something, and then...
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, because that's the plot of Groundhog Day, and I guess I thought it was the same thing, but it's a little bit more... It's a little sadder, more serious.
It's fucking dark.
Yeah, it's super dark. There's like no comedy in this whatsoever.
I would disagree with that, but we'll get there.
Okay, fair enough. He's wandering aimlessly one time, and he notices a newspaper headline that says Nobel Prize winner predicts time bounce. So he tries to talk to this doctor that predicts, the scientist that predicted the time bounce, and pretty much gets laughed off when he tries to call him on the phone, or he runs out of time. So then he gets frustrated, and he starts trying to help people avoid perils, like the guy getting pooped on. There's a dude whose grocery sack is going to rip. He defends a bum from a verbal beating and gives him a bunch of cash, and Dolores runs up to him and introduces herself, and pretty much he could have had a date right then and there. And again, I thought that was the whole, and it wasn't. He just walks away. He introduces himself and walks away. Finally, he goes to see the doctor in person, the scientist, to explain his situation. And the scientist says there's nothing he can do for him. Myron says that he is the only one that can change time right now. He's the only one living outside of it. He's Myron Castleman, God, and then he shoots himself in the head. And of course, he's back alive at 12:01. And then it ends pretty much.
Yeah, where he's basically stuck there for eternity.
He didn't solve the problem.
Yeah, I would say that's bordering on horrific.
Yeah. It's that's the definition of purgatory, right?
Exactly, yeah. Which makes me wonder whether or not he is dead and he just doesn't realize it, or if there really is something going on with the antimatter universe colliding with the matter universe. But no, I was actually super impressed with this. I'd never heard of it until you suggested it. Just finished watching it maybe 10 minutes prior to hopping online with you. And I would say that it definitely tarnishes Groundhog Day significantly for me.
Well, yeah, there's a number of things right off the bat. The basic premise, the time loop thing. Then,
the memorization of what he sees as recurring events. It's definitely. I hate to use the word ripoff, but I can't really think of any other appropriate. Groundhog Day definitely has its own spin on it because Bill Murray brings his own thing, Harold Ramis and Andy McDowell bring their own thing, and while they are clearly different movies, the plots are identical.
Yeah, they are. Bill Murray takes to helping the people that he sees fumble around in life. There's a girl he's trying to impress. I know that was only a minor part of this story, but it's there. Also, the fact
and the fact that this little short film was nominated for an Academy Award tells me that it wasn't just, at least at the time of its release, some obscure little movie that maybe 20 people saw. No, this was definitely on the industry's radar.
Yeah, how could it not have been?
I don't know.
And then there's the fact that he kills himself and he pops back up, which is a big theme in Groundhog Day when Bill Murray repeatedly tries to commit suicide and fails at it.
Well, plus both characters declare themselves gods.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
It's pretty cut and dry, really. Which is a shame because, I mean, you're right. Groundhog Day is a classic movie. I've loved that movie ever since I saw it way back in the day. And it definitely takes a lot of the shine off of it.
It does. It does. I mean, I'm going to have to watch Groundhog Day again. I didn't watch it beforehand. I remember it quite a bit, but it kind of pisses me off as somebody that likes to write and aspires to be some sort of creative type, that something that bold. Like, I understand in homages and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was actually kind of getting into a discussion on the Countdowns Facebook page when somebody mentioned Midsummer.
Uh-huh.
And again, I will stick with this. Midsummer is a pretty blatant ripoff of The Wicker Man,
which we talk about in the archives when we covered The Wicker Man. Please download it.
And someone said that, well, Tarantino steals stuff all the time. Shakespeare steals stuff all the time. But the difference between what Groundhog Day did and what Midsummer did is Tarantino and Shakespeare would take little tiny things from all kinds of different sources and combine them into making something new and original.
Yeah.
However, Midsummer and Groundhog Day lifted the entire plots and tried to pass them off as original.
Yes. So here's the difference between 12:01 p.m. and Groundhog Day and another movie that shares the same basic premise but does something completely different, and that's Happy Death Day, where it's Groundhog Day, basically. She wakes up every morning, she's caught in a time loop, but she's trying to solve the mystery of this slasher that kills her every time. She's trying to prevent her own death, basically. So it takes the premise of Groundhog Day, of the time loop, and of course everyone recognizes it as a horror movie version of Groundhog Day, but it spins off in a completely different direction. And Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, the sequel, which again spins in a completely different direction from even the first movie while still keeping the same premise, they're a lot better than they have any right to be. They're pretty damn good, I think.
You're not the first person I've heard say that, actually.
Yeah, like initially when they're ripping off Groundhog Day. No, it's completely different. You can take a premise, like slasher movies have been doing it for fucking years.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong, I think, with taking a premise and using it as a launching pad.
Yeah, exactly. In comic books, like The Watchmen, it takes the basic premise of several different heroes, changes the names, and grounds them into reality a little bit more, and then says, what if?
Exactly, yeah.
There's ways to do it.
There's nothing wrong with that as long as you bring your own thing to it.
Exactly. And I feel like 1201 and Groundhog Day are not that dissimilar. I think there's a lot more in common than there are differences.
Mm-hmm. I'd say as of this recording, the thing that has me not kind of going into a blind rage against Groundhog Day is that it's still a charming movie.
It is a charming
movie. You can't really deny the chemistry that Harold Ramis and Bill Murray had when working together. They had interesting, likable characters. So that alone makes it watchable to me.
Yeah, I'm not going to shit on Groundhog Day, but I did, when I was watching 1201, I felt really bad for the writer because he never really got any sort of acclaim. I guess he hosted a radio show for a while where he interviewed prolific authors like Kurt Vonnegut and Ursula Le Guin and people like that, which is great. But I mean, he never really achieved a lot of success for his work. And I feel like, I don't know, I just feel bad that he didn't get proper recognition for something.
Yeah, because I mean, when you think about it, this concept kind of is on the same level of The Matrix, where you're stuck in an artificial world, but you just don't realize it.
Oh, that's true,
you're stuck in a world that isn't what you think it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Simulation theory, right?
Yeah. Now, we were talking about the lack of humor in the story, and I don't think it's completely devoid of that, because I got to say that the relationship between Kurtwood Smith and his secretary
yeah,
that actually had me laughing out loud at one point.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, and honestly, that is, I'd say 90% the result of Kurtwood Smith's acting.
Yeah, he's really good in this.
Why this guy's just a character actor is beyond me. I've always enjoyed his work.
And you know what's funny? He looked the same in 1990 as he does now. He's one of those people.
Kurtwood Smith, Hollywood vampire.
Yeah, Arn Anderson, same thing. Still looks the same. Arn Anderson has looked like he was 45 when he was 20. But now that he's 60-something, he still looks 45, so good for him. In my research for this, because that's what I do, I found an interview with Danny Rubin, who wrote Groundhog Day, and it's an article he wrote for The Telegraph because Groundhog Day became a musical. And, so the article is entitled, How I Wrote the Script for Groundhog Day in Less Than a Week. And
really?
Yes, and when I read this, it in no way put me on his side.
His case.
All right. When I read this first line, I want you to remember that 12:01 p.m. came out in 1990. The article begins, one afternoon back in 1990, I was sitting in a cinema in Los Angeles waiting for the lights to go down. That's the first line. The very last line is, and it all started because one afternoon in L.A. I decided to go see a movie. The strangest thing, I don't even remember what the movie was. I bet I can guess. Danny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So he says he went to see a movie by himself. He only had a book with him.
What a loser.
Yeah, like who goes see a movie solo? Get a friend group, huh?
Yeah.
He says, before even cracking the cover, I started drifting, thinking about these near people, and I should mention the book he was going to read was an Anne Rice vampire book. So before even cracking the cover, I started drifting, thinking about these near people and their superhuman ability to live forever. I wondered what that would be like. What would you do for an eternity? How long would it take before it stopped being fun or interesting or worthwhile? How would an eternally long life affect a person, particularly one who seemed incapable of change within his own normal lifetime? These struck me as interesting questions and a promising premise for a movie. My agent was advising me to write something new and quickly, a calling card script that would get me into meetings. I had this basic idea about the potential for a person to change over the course of an eternal life, but wasn't sure how to set it up. It was at that point that I remembered an old story idea I had left buried in a box of index cards. A man wakes up every morning and it's the same day over and over again. That's when my head exploded. Putting those two ideas together was the birth of Groundhog Day.
Though, I mean, when you think about it, if the whole reason why he made this script was just to get his foot in the door, he wasn't even intending to sell it, I am willing to give that a pass if that's true.
Yeah, but it's up to somebody at some point to be like, hey, we need to throw
they're supposed to have, at least they're supposed to follow Writer Guild's guidelines, I would think.
I can write a spec script for a Spider-Man movie tomorrow as a calling card, and if it gets made into a movie or greenlit, I'm in some deep shit real quick with the Disney Corporation.
You would think so.
So it's kind of the same idea, I would think. But what do I know? So the other thing is there was a 1201 that came out in 1993, the same year as Groundhog Day. Came out a few months after Groundhog Day, but you would think the production on both would be pretty similar because I think Groundhog Day came out in the summer and the movie premiered on Fox in September, October, November, something like that.
No, I would not expect the productions to be that similar.
No?
Because I'm willing to bet that a made-for-TV Fox movie in the early 1990s looks cheap as fuck.
It wasn't that bad.
Really?
If you had told me that it had been a big screen theatrical release, I would have bought it.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's surprising.
Yeah. It starred Jonathan Silverman, Martin Landau, Helen Slater, and Jeremy Piven. And it's a lot more of a comedic. It's more of a romantic comedy like Groundhog Day, where Jonathan Silverman is smitten with this scientist that works at his job, named Lisa, played by Helen Slater, who looks completely hey girl hey, every bit of Supergirl. And he's trying to get to know her, and one night he wakes up in the morning and relives the same day, blah, blah, blah. This goes through all these like scientific explanations of why it's happening and what caused it, and it's this big plot that they have to stop. But I found it slightly enjoyable. It wasn't as good as 12:01 p.m. with Kurtwood Smith, but it's not bad. It's average, I guess.
Now, this is the Kurtwood Smith version, and I'm assuming the short story that it was based on, seemed to be, fairly to the point. They're trimmed all the fat away from it. Would an hour and a half long version of this same story kind of feel padded by comparison?
I think it would. Yeah, I think the Kurtwood Smith one is so effective because it's straight to the point.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more going on in the Jonathan Silverman one, but it's more of a romantic comedy. The tone is completely different. There's a bunch of one-liners that actually made me laugh, believe it or not, a couple of them.
Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm not going to say it was a clever movie. There's some good lines in it and stuff. I probably liked it a lot more than I should have as well. His thing is he relives the same 24 hours, not the same hour. So there's plenty of time to memorize details, woo the girl, save the day, etc.
I have to admit, I'm really surprised because it's like I told you before we hit record. I kind of want to avoid that just to kind of keep this version that we're talking about kind of pristine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the fact that you're saying it's actually not a bad movie is a pleasant surprise.
I don't know. Do you like romantic comedies?
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah, I do too. Some days I get in the mood for a romantic comedy. I'm like, I want to see some funny people fall in love and be cute. And
I mean, as long as it's a well written, well directed movie, I think any genre can be effective.
one more thing that I have to discuss, because this blew my mind. There's a sequel to Groundhog Day in video game form that came out.
What?
Yeah, that came out last year. It was released on PlayStation VR and Oculus Rift, called Groundhog Day, Like Father, Like Son. The game has the player take the role of Phil's son, Phil Connors Jr., who becomes trapped in a time loop while in Puxatawny and requires the player to figure out how to escape it. The game was released on September 17th, 2019. I didn't hear about this at all. I had no idea it existed.
No.
And I'm like, why does this exist?
That is a good question. Did you hear any reviews or feedbacks on this thing?
No, I didn't have time. But from what I gather, it looks like it's basically one of those Telltale games.
Okay.
Where it's a choose your own adventure basically, and you have to try to escape the time loop, and every action you take affects something else, and blah blah blah. I didn't realize the world was clamoring for a Groundhog Day, the video game. I really didn't.
I mean, I could see where it would be kind of fun to be a bad guy version in that environment.
Oh yeah, that would be fun. I don't know if you're allowed to do that. That'd be interesting.
That right there, I think it would be worth at least a couple of plays to try it out. Yeah, I would try it.
You're game for anything, sir.
I'm an optimist.
I love it. Glass half full, says Tomko.
Absolutely.
And I say glass half bleh.
You say the glass is broken and it fucking thing cut me.
Yeah. I say the glass just has micro fibers of glass that'll get into the water and leak into my system and give me cancer.
Yeah, that's how the coronavirus started. Pessimism.
Yep. That's all the coronavirus is. I don't know why nobody gets that. It's pessimism. And pessimism is a disease.
It is.
Well, pessimism or no, what do you think, sir? Judge, jury, executioner. The Groundhog Day rip-off 12:01 p.m.?
Absolutely it did.
I think
it did put its own weak spin on it just by virtue of the people who made it, but the plots are exactly the same.
I think so too. Someone's favorite movie is spoken. Give
Someone's favorite movie just got ruined.
Yep, exactly. That's what we do. We ruin someone's favorite movie and praise someone's favorite movie. But when you praise
it's a
one,
double-edged sword here,
it is.
folks.
It's just like life. You can't win. You can't
Randy
lose.
giveth and Randy taketh.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, this was a fun episode, huh?
This was.
Yeah.
Yes.
I encourage you all to seek out 12:01 p.m. It's a half hour long. It's well worth your time.
Yes. It's on YouTube. It's not going to cost you anything. It's so worth the watch.
Yeah. Tell the people where they can find you on all the socials.
On the socials, you can find me on Twitter at The Drunken Dork. On Facebook, I have a little group called Jake and Tom Conquer the Group, and that's all in support of my show, Jake and Tom Conquer the World, out every Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Michigan time.
I like how scheduled you are on that. I can't get a concrete schedule down to save my life.
Hey, I treat it like a job, sir.
I mean, that's what I need to do. I need to, just a certain amount of time for this, and this, and get it done, and then out, and my life can continue.
Don't get me wrong. It can get kind of hectic when I have weekend plans. So all my nights are spent furiously sitting in front of the computer, staring at a screen and looking at a waveform.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Totally. You can find me at mretailslave on the Twitter, or search that Oh my God, talking would be nice. Search that hashtag Miserable Retail Slave on that Instagram when you're looking at all the pretty pictures. And if you've got that Facebook.com, and I know you do, search Miserable Retail Slave, join our group, and listen to the Miserable Retail Slave show. We would appreciate it. Well, me and Tommy would. I don't know if Tomko would appreciate it, but who cares? Also, live stream for The Cure is coming up. Miserable Retail Slave will be on it. Jake and Tom Conquer the World will be on it, and I think this program will be on it too. It's all to raise money for cancer research. This is the third year I've done it. It's every year it gets bigger and better. Last year, all told, close to $17,000 was raised.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Nick, Justin, and Loy Sauce do amazing things with it. I'm proud of those guys.
Yeah, it's by far one of the favorite parts of my year. And I encourage you all to tune in. It starts May 27th and goes all weekend, live streaming on Twitch. Tune in, listen to a funny show, throw a couple bucks their way. All goes to a great cause. 100% of it goes to cancer research. It'll be fun. So, also, get in your possessed body parts movies and a brief review about them. Send it to someone's favorite movie podcast@gmail.com.
Yes, as well as any other obscure or hidden gem movies.
Please.
I'm really hoping that we can get some suggestions for some something on the level of Tammy and the T-Rex. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm hoping.
That's an all-time favorite right now for me.
Yes.
Especially since my gal likes it so much too. That's what made me be like, well, this is the girl right here.
Did you get your legit copy yet?
I do have it. I have not watched it yet. I bought it from Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray. It comes with a sweet-ass lenticular cover. There's an interview with Denise Richards on it, which blows my mind. I can't wait to watch that to see what she says. But I haven't watched it yet. I'm curious to see what it looks like in a version that's not ripped from a VHS tape and smeared with all sorts of debris and dust and dirt. I'm wondering what it looks like really clear. So I'm eager to watch it again.
I've nothing else than to review the remastered and padded out supplemental material that I'm sure that they loaded it with.
Yeah, it's got Vinegar Syndrome is your place for obscure, really obscure movies. And they always load all their shit with loads of extras and stuff. So if you're a movie lover, check them out.
Excellent.
All right. We will see you next time. We're covering My Bloody Valentine. Because, again, we're whores for holidays. Valentine's Day's coming up, folks. My Bloody Valentine. We'll see you then. Bye.
See ya.